this is what it's all about right here.
Welcome back, guys. Joe again here from Seaworld Aquatics. And man, put your seatbelt on, saddle up, strap down, grab a beer, grab a drink, because this is going to be a good one. You're not going to believe what we found hiding in an old abandoned warehouse in Cleveland, Ohio. Believe it or not, we found the Seaworld aquatic equipment. We're going to go on a tour today. It's going to be a good one. Let's get on it.
Stuff?
Yeah.
A little too much? Come on.
Yeah, man.
Never run away from a challenge.
Oh, I don't know.
Never run away. It's excitement.
You go
Goodness.
I got my Starship hat on. My SpaceX, we're ready to go. All right, guys, check this out. We are in an undisclosed location somewhere in the bowels of Cleveland, Ohio, in a kind of an abandoned, massive warehouse. And this is where the Seaworld equipment has been hiding probably since the late 90s, since Seaworld closed. So we have our guide, our tour today, Nick. Upstairs at a flip tour. Let's go. Alright, we are in an elevator that's incredibly old. What year was this building built? Back in the 40s and 50s?
Probably earlier than that.
Look at the controls. Get up on that. They don't make them this way nowadays. Yes, this floor got to be.
Used to be the main company storage building.
This is like 500 foot by 500. Okay, now the $1 million question. Right? So we're starting from the beginning, from the top. What in the world is going on here? Why is all this equipment up here? And how long has it been up here? I mean, you told me earlier, we talked about, so SeaWorld closed in 1999, 2000, somewhere in that
2000,
region.
yeah.
And then all of that equipment, a lot of equipment, Jack, turn around. This whole area right here, from left to right, that equipment went all the way up against that wall, right to there or further?
Yeah, probably there. And more on this side.
So as the years have gone by, a little bit, well, not a little bit, a lot of it has disappeared, right?
Yes,
It's
right.
gone to other public aquariums across the country.
Yeah, and this was one location we had.
This is
We
one
had
location.
more stuff than this.
So the story, what is the story behind this whole thing? I mean, why is all this equipment up here? I mean, it sounded like at one time there was maybe a dream, a vision, a quest.
It was a dream, yes.
So maybe a public aquarium at one time.
Yeah, there's a little more context that goes to it. So if we start from the beginning, many native Clevelanders would know, old timers like you and I and older than us would know that there was a Cleveland Aquarium that was down on East 72nd Street.
Okay.
And the building is still there, right on the freeway.
I think
You
I would
can
have
see
been this
it.
tall.
You and I both, right?
Yep.
Right. My dad tells me that he took me there when I was a kid, so I've definitely been
that
there.
building's
I don't-
still there?
I don't remember much about it at that point, but the building is still there, and I've gone back since. Regardless, it's right on East 72nd Street in Gordon Park there.
Okay.
That used to be the Cleveland Aquarium. That was an aquarium that opened up on Labor Day in 1954.
Wow.
And there was a lot of firsts that happened there. There's a lot that happened there. At that time in the 50s, there wasn't a lot of inland salt water, right?
Right.
The only places that had salt water, and the only people that really had salt water, were people that lived on the coast, or big facilities like the Shed Aquarium. They used to take, Shed Aquarium had some saltwater aquariums, but they had to send a rail car down to Florida, fill it up with salt water from the coast,
Okay.
and bring it back up, and they held it in their tanks, and that's how they did water changes and stuff like that. There was no artificial seawater way back then. So there was, I'm getting deep into the history of it,
Right.
but it's interesting, and I think it's interesting for your viewers nonetheless. So at that point, the Cleveland Aquarium started learning about some formulas that were being developed in Europe of some miscellaneous salts in a particular recipe
Okay.
to try to keep saltwater fish alive through an artificial seawater recipe.
Okay.
So our people from the aquarium went to Germany. They saw what they had. They brought the recipe back.
Wow.
It worked pretty good. It was okay. It wasn't great. Just had a few, seawater is not just sodium chloride. Seawater is a whole concoction. Natural seawater has all the elements dissolved in it. But seawater, what's important for fish, just has a relative handful of different types of salts. Sodium chloride, calcium chloride, magnesium sulfate, magnesium chloride, all that kind of stuff. So they took this recipe, modified it a little bit, and their litmus test was that they keep octopuses alive. Octopuses are sensitive. They were able to keep fish alive, but they wanted to keep octopuses alive.
Okay.
And they came out with this recipe that they used for quite some time, for several years actually. Well, at that point, things like Jiffy Pop was coming out, and there were instant Jell-O that was starting, and there was TV dinners, not in a microwave, of course, but, things like that were happening. And so they were joking around at the aquarium one day, let's just call it Instant Ocean. And the name sort of stuck. And then the director of the aquarium at the time parted ways, started out his own company, took that formula, patented it, trademarked it, called it Instant Ocean, and basically that's how you have it. So
Is that the one in Menor on Tyler
that's
Boulevard?
the one in Menor on Tyler Boulevard.
Okay,
That's
I remember
exactly
that.
right. Aquarium
Oh, hell no!
And so that's how popular nowadays regular artificial seawater, good artificial seawater, essentially was formed. Instant Ocean sort of started it all,
Wow.
and a lot of that happened here at the East 72nd Street Aquarium, the Greater Cleveland Aquarium. So they were able to keep a lot of stuff, and to continue with our story, that aquarium was small, it was groundbreaking in a lot of 50s and 60s and 70s technology.
Right.
It was a subsidy of the Natural History Museum.
Okay.
And the Natural History Museum was focusing on the Natural History Museum, and they were just sort of an offshoot. The aquarium was sort of an offshoot. And there were problems that were happening with the building, the Cleveland Aquarium building.
Okay.
And the museum didn't want to put any money into it. They did do it in addition at one point. I don't remember exactly when that was, 72 maybe? I don't remember exactly what that was. So they did this addition, and then basically things just started, falling apart. It would cost money. The Natural History Museum didn't want to do it anymore. So in 1985, the aquarium closed down.
Okay.
The Cleveland Foundation donated $2 million, I think, $1 million or $2 million to the zoo to renovate part of the primate and cat building to house some of the collection from the Cleveland Aquarium. Other animals were sent to other public aquariums around the country. But some of that stuff was sent to the zoo, and it was renovated in such a way so that this way, within 5 years, they wanted to build a public aquarium, a bigger, real public aquarium, nonprofit aquarium in the city of Cleveland.
Okay.
It was a temporary thing. So 5 years turned into 10 years. 10 years turned into 15 years. 15 years turned into 20 years. Basically, it turns out that, you know, nothing was happening at that point. There were a number of us which are extremely passionate about a number of us in the profession. Let me say professional aquarists, but I only mean that in the fact that that's our day job. That's what we do. I work at the zoo, other folks at the zoo, other folks that were affiliated with us, professional aquarists. Again, not trying to delineate anything that a hobbyist, we're all hobbyists too. So we wanted to see something happen. In the 90s, there was a big push to build a really big public aquarium, a world-class aquarium here. You may remember that. That was called the Great Waters Aquarium. That project started in the early 90s, and then I think it finally closed down in 97, 95, 97, something like that. Just couldn't get enough traction for what they wanted to do. They wanted to build that on the lakefront.
Okay.
Well, we picked up the dream and said, hey, we want to do this, but we don't need to spend, at that time, it was something like $50 million, which was, in today's day and age, $150 million. I don't remember what it was, but there were public aquariums that were starting. The New England Aquarium started in '68, I think.
Okay.
Tennessee Aquarium, Baltimore Aquarium, Tennessee Aquarium. So there were a lot of public aquariums that started popping up at that time, and these were big, designed by architects and all that kind of stuff. Well, we're sort of DIYers, you know.
Right.
We put stuff together, we make stuff work, and it doesn't have to look the sexiest in the back. It just needs to look good from the front.
Right.
So we had this dream, let's do this. Seaworld at that time was closing down, as we talked about. They sold their stuff to Six Flags. Six Flags owned Seaworld for about 3 or 4 years. Six Flags wasn't having it. It just wasn't working out. So they decided to close down their shop. We had already started picking out some stuff from different other facilities that were either closing down or renovating, picking up some things, but the SeaWorld / Six Flags stuff was our big boom.
Right.
We spent a long time there, going in, pulling out big tanks, pulling out acrylic, pulling out filters, pulling out ozone machines, pulling out whale pool chillers, 20 horsepower pumps that were running the shark encounter, all that kind of stuff.
Those are photos you sent me last week, which showed everything right here.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
We pulled all this stuff out. Blood, sweat, and tears. It was the best times of your life, but it's the worst times of your life, you know.
I'm going to attempt to put a couple of those photos up on the screen right now so people can see what we're talking about. I think you sent me 8 photos, so I'm going to put those on right now. So now all that's up here.
So we spent a lot of time picking this stuff up. We formed a corporation to basically build this aquarium in Cleveland. We wanted to pick up the Cleveland Aquarium name. We wanted to bring that back to Cleveland. We wanted to bring that notoriety back to Cleveland is what we did.
Okay.
We wanted it to be a non-profit organization. That was extremely important to us. We wanted a non-profit. We felt at the time that nonprofit is the way to go. We wanted to focus on conservation. We wanted to focus on all this kind of stuff. At that time, there wasn't a lot of nonprofit aquariums out there. There were some nonprofit aquariums, but it was really there weren't, let me rephrase that, there weren't many for-profit aquariums out there. There were some. There were nonprofit aquariums, and those were the big, really nice public aquariums, and that's what we wanted here for the city of Cleveland, was to have something like that. We had a site picked out right on the corner of the lakefront and the Cuyahoga River there. The site was on the east bank of the flats, right in that corner there. We wanted that. That was a spot.
That was just to the west of the Browns Stadium? Is
That is just to the west of the Brown Stadium,
Okay.
right on the eastern part of the river,
Okay,
right where it comes out. And at that time, it was the old flats, the 80s flats that was still there and starting to get run down. They were talking about renovating this, and we wanted to be the anchor. We wanted to be the thing, right? And all that, make that happen.
that would have been a prime spot.
And we tried, and we did a lot of stuff that we could. But when you talk about a nonprofit aquarium, you talk about a nonprofit facility, a lot of people don't like that because there's a lot of competition for those nonprofit dollars, right? We're not a Chicago, we're not a New York, we're not these cities that have lots and lots of old money, lots of people that are, that are extremely wealthy like that. It's not to say there aren't any, of course, but those places have lots and lots of old philanthropists like that. So it was sort of difficult. We were competing with a lot of these very well-established nonprofit facilities. They didn't like that because it was competition. Now we'd be competing with them, and it dilutes that source. And we would try to go to this politician and talk. We spoke with the mayor a number of times, did all this kind of stuff, and you get routed. All right, go see this person, go see this person. And everyone just sort of kicks you off and does something else. And basically, it just wasn't happening. And then we started talking about doing something smaller, doing what was called a pre-aquarium, where we had just our stuff here that we could cobble together. That's how the old Cleveland Aquarium was started. The old Cleveland Aquarium was started from the Cleveland Aquarium Society, and it was basically a bunch of hobbyists that got together and blood, sweat, and tears and just made this happen, and that's what we wanted to do again. And during this whole process of all of this, we had incredible volunteers, people that wanted to see this dream succeed. They put blood, sweat, and tears and all this kind of stuff. We were all doing this volunteer. We were doing this on our own just to make this happen. We were doing it on our vacation time, our own time, our days off and all that kind of thing. Finally turned out where, this probably just isn't doing anything, just isn't happening. So over the years, we sold some of this stuff off to other public aquariums like you had mentioned. Right. And basically this is where we're at. This is sort of what's here. The vast majority of this stuff is from the old Seaworld, Six Flags. There's a few other things from some other aquariums and stuff like that.
And a lot of stuff is already gone. A
Yes.
ton of stuff
Yes.
is gone.
Yeah, a lot of stuff. This is, I don't know, maybe 20% of what we had, or 10 to 20% of what we had, all that kind of stuff.
Brian picked up the big 30-footer.
Yep, right.
29-footer, we gotta be exact there, 29-footer. So, well, let's pan over that way and look at what is here. And this might look like just
Looks like a garage sale.
yeah, a lot of people will look at this and go, what am I looking at? But there's a ton of stuff. Let's go back here. Jack got the sneak peek right before we got here. So we got a whole bunch of, obviously a ton of filters here. Over here on the right, some PLC controls. There's a whole pallet full of stuff. This is all the automation equipment right back here on the pallets. There's probably 12 of them. UV sterilizers. Explain this one to me one more time. This guy right here. This is where you guys were. These barrels right here. We talked about this last week. This is upside down right now. This is where you were cultivating and making, was it brine you said?
Yeah, these are somewhat translucent. They're just thin fiberglass sheets that are made into these cone shapes. And a lot of times you use these for, you bubble from the bottom, and you use these for cultivating algae in order to grow brine shrimp or rotifers or different types of microorganisms that you'd use for either larval fish or for jellies and stuff like that. And you can see they're plumbed on the bottom.
Yeah.
These are a little dusty right now, but
That
you
one's
know.
probably 18 inches in diameter. That one's
Yeah.
probably 24. These down here are
This
30,
one's a good
36s.
30. Yeah, right.
So I do notice a lot of this stuff. A lot of this, it's like, what is this, like a fiberglass resin of some sort?
Yeah, that's
is the-
fiberglass I-beam, and then on top that you're seeing the green there, that's fiber grate. That is popularly used as a safety walkway, and you can see the fiberglass I-beam underneath it. And of course, you know, you have to use that in aquariums because it's rust resistant. You can see the stainless steel bolts there, and you know, if you use steel, obviously that would just rust out in no time.
Now we've got 11 of these right here. These triangle aquariums. These were what, 62 by 62 by I think 4 foot tall.
Yeah, they were somewhere around 250 gallons, close to that.
And there's
The people
11
that-
of these. Was that what it
I
was?
think
Did
there
we
were
count
10
it?
of these.
Okay, 10.
The people who remember Seaworld will remember these. These were in the center of the aquarium building there. There's lots of stuff inside of them, of course. There's filters and all that kind of thing there. But you know, these were set up with different exhibits.
Holy cow. There is a lot of stuff here. Okay, now that I think we got a little bit of the history of what's transpired over the last 20, 30 years, I think we better break this video into 2 parts. We're going to wrap it up right here because now in part 2, we're going to get into all of the items that are here in front of us. And it's going to take at least 15 minutes for you guys to see this. So wrap it up here. Thanks for watching and get ready for part 2. With that, we're out of here. These guys are all 2 1/4. And if I remember, these were roughly 6 foot by 8. So these are some big boys. This was part of the hexagon tank, you would say, somewhere in the corner.